Hello class. In this video I will be going over stage 3, the production stage for your project and for the course. This covers weeks 8 to 11 of the course. So 4 weeks will be dedicated to the production stage. The last time you would have seen a video like this from me would have been at the start of stage 2, the pre-production stage, where I also laid out everything that was happening at that point to guide you over those 4 weeks of the semester. At this point, we are halfway through, right? We're coming back after reading week. Things should be much more routine with the course for you by this point, so I think this stage as well should make the most sense so far of any of the previous stages, simply because you are now more used to the format of the course, as well as your submissions and all of that kind of stuff. So I will go ahead and jump into it. Here we are in Blackboard. Here is stage 3, the production stage. Now, before I get to this, let me go ahead and open up the critical path, which, of course, it's buried a little bit in all of these hierarchies of information here. Critical path, just to kind of give a sense of, where you're at, where you're coming from, where you've been. So, here's the critical path. As you might realize, it looks quite a bit like your individual timelines you've developed for the class. That's intentional, right? So the first 3 weeks of the course was stage 1, research and planning. That's when you got up to speed with the class. You had that course review quiz, which you may have felt one way or the other on. And then you had your stage 1 deliverables due, which was your project proposal, and then a timeline for the first 7 weeks of the semester. Then you went into stage 2, which is the pre-production stage. And at this point, I also started meeting with students. We discussed your projects, made sure you were on a good track, made sure everything would work well for the course. And you had 2 big submissions there, one in week 5, one in week 7. One of which included the peer feedback activity that you did with your peers, and another one had the remote work foundations module that you completed. So you've done a lot in the semester, and during stage 2 you also would have been working on your pre-production work, right? So sketches, storyboards, wireframes, really starting to get your ideas out there, starting to develop a framework for what it is you're going to really create with this project. So that leads us now into where we are, week 8 through 14, right? The second half of the semester, and it will go by quite quickly. It usually tends to. I find that this half also went by rather fast, honestly. So now you'll see weeks 8 to 11 are dedicated to the production stage. And I'll talk a bit about what kind of work you're going to be doing at this stage, but you will, similarly to stage 2, have 2 big submissions of your project work in week 9 and in week 11. And then you should have your production assets all completed by the end of week 11, which will then lead into your second peer feedback activity, just getting final comments from peers, last minute tweaks on your assets. And at this point, you will also be working on your Behance case study. And in the feedback that students gave for stage 1, which was much appreciated, some students said, okay, I don't know how to do the Behance thing, and it's like that hasn't come up yet in the class, so I will ensure you that there will be some guidelines and some resources to help you along the way for putting together your Behance case study, but you're not working on that yet, right? You won't start that until week 12, so no worries for now. Just focus on your production work. And you'll see that your final stage 4, which will include your final submission for the course, is in week 13, right? It's not at the very, very end of the semester. That gives a little bit of buffer room. Ideally, you will have it completed there at the end of the semester. And then week 14 will just be simply looking at each other's projects and providing some comments on them. But that'll all come in stage 4, so I'm not going to focus on too much of that right now, but just know that you should be planning for your project to be completed by the end of week 13, not by the end of week 14. That's just cutting it too close to the end of the semester. Okay, so that's the critical path, just kind of giving you, again, a sense of the scope of the course. So you're going to now start to think about how you can conceive and put tasks for your project now on this kind of format when it comes to stage 3. The production stage, right? Develop your assets using the basis of work from the pre-production stage. So I said a lot in the pre-production stage that the amount of work and effort you put into pre-production will help you immensely once you move into the production stage. What I'm really trying to encourage and have you do in this class is not just have a project assigned to you and immediately jump into, Photoshop or Premiere or After Effects or whatever it is, or Figma and things like this, and just start making the final thing. I'm trying to move you away from that kind of approach, and I'm sure that this isn't the first class where that's been the case. A lot of your classes in this program are all about the process that you go through. So this class, similarly, right, is trying to get you move step by step through this project process so that you can really see your creativity develop over time. So in the pre-production stage, maybe you started to open up some of your creative software, again, like After Effects and stuff like that. But now in the production stage is when you're going to really be working in those programs, right? And you're going to start creating your final assets. So first off, there is a feedback form for stage 2 here, similar to how there was in stage 2 for stage 1. So I definitely would appreciate you completing this. Just quickly, you can fill out, how helpful was this stuff for your learning and project development in the course. How's the workload feeling? And then any additional comments as well. This is very helpful for me to, get some insight from you and figure out ways to help improve stuff. I'm already taking insight and feedback from the previous form that was done to try and improve the course for you. So it's an ongoing process. Overview of stage 3. Right, you've now reached stage 3 production of your multimedia project. The goal of this stage is to bring your pre-production plans from stage 2 to life, transforming your ideas into a finished product. At this stage, you'll be spending a lot of time in relevant design software putting together your assets, right? I'm saying that again because now you're really going to jump into all that stuff. Sketches and storyboards and things like that, you may not necessarily be using whatever Adobe Suite or different sort of programs you would be creating your final assets in, but now you're going to start using those programs. Purpose of stage 3. This stage focuses on executing your ideas and creating the content of your final project, right? So you're going to really start working on your actual final assets here, whether those are videos or prototypes or whatever it is you're developing for this class. You will use the sketches, storyboards, scripts, wireframes, etc. developed in the pre-production stage to guide your work, right? So again, this is you laid the framework for the production stage in stage 2. Now you're going to use what you set down as you develop your production assets. Yes, of course, some things might change in that process. That's okay, but it shouldn't be huge, drastic changes because you should be able to, at the end of this, be able to see a thread of your creative ideas evolving and developing over time, which a part of that development is changes, right? So just taking note of that and seeing that. You will conduct self-learning, of course, as you have been throughout this process. YouTube tutorials, various other resources, even back and forth with AI, ChatGPT can be helpful. So you'll be conducting self-learning to advance your skill set while you work on your production assets. Remember that with this class, you aren't supposed to just be reiterating skills you already know in the program, but developing and building on them. So really, when you're working on your production assets, be pushing yourself, right? Be experimenting with new features in the software you're using. Be, moving forward and developing your skills. That's what's really important about this. It isn't meant to just be all the skills you already know, just using them, only them, right? You should be developing your skills in some way through this process. That's what makes it a learning experience. If you encounter challenges during production, which you will, you can contact your professor, that's me, seek feedback from peers, or use tools like ChatGPT to brainstorm solutions. I'm not against advising you to use AI. I think it's helpful for ideation and back and forth. Just be, aware that maybe it's not right about everything, so just be smart about what it's telling you, but I think it can be helpful for back and forth. If you're stuck on something, getting just a quick additional perspective without having to ask a human, that's kind of what it's there for. This is also an opportunity to develop your adaptability, right? You're going to come across challenges. So how do you adapt in that scenario? Do you freeze and stop working on the project, or do you find a solution and move forward, right? The key takeaway is that the more prepared you are from your previous stage, the more efficient and effective this stage will be. Instead of getting stuck in the details, refer back to your plans to keep your project on track. This ensures you remain aligned with your creative vision as you turn your ideas into reality. Once again, you don't have to feel like you have to do that. You can't possibly veer some of your project as you work on it and make some creative changes, but the importance of this process, once again, is being able to show that you developed your ideas in pre-production that then came to life in the production stage, rather than the majority of your ideas coming about in the production stage, which that might be how you typically work, is you just open up After Effects and do it, right? No, you really need to be able to show that process and think through it. It's very, very important for you to do. Stage 3 breakdown. So there are, again, two sort of bi-weekly chunks, Stage 3 Part 1 and Stage 3 Part 2. In both of these stages, you are going to be working on your production work. You will develop a project timeline in Stage 3 Part 1 for the second half of the course. There's going to be supervisor meetings ongoing from weeks 9 to 11, so I'll talk a bit more about that in a second. And then your professional development activity is also ongoing, and that's covered elsewhere on Blackboard. So that gives you some overview of the main tasks you will be thinking about and spending your time on during those two parts of Stage 3. Each submission will also, of course, request the timesheet and the timeline. So just like before, just keep that format moving forward. A lot of students forget one or the other, and then I have to say, you forgot this, and then you have to resubmit it. So just try to get all of them submitted at the same time, please. It helps everyone, of course, you included. During this stage, you will also participate in your second supervisor meeting with me. So review the meeting schedule and ensure you are on time and prepared. Information for the professional development activity is elsewhere on Blackboard. So the professional development activity is its own module section right here. You'll see if you open it, there is its own dedicated video. It's around 10 minutes. And I walk you through this activity, which is due at the end of November. So you have about a month to complete that. You should be completing it and making sure you're working on it sooner rather than later. You don't want to wait until the day before to find out what that assignment even is. So make sure you spend some time reviewing that, especially now at the start of the second half of the semester, because it's a component of the second half of the semester. Supervisor meetings, I feel like this should be pretty straightforward now that after the first meetings, but there are guidelines here. There are schedules for you to access. The meetings will take place across 3 weeks. The format is that each team has a 50-minute block, and then each member has 10 minutes of those 50 minutes to meet one-on-one. It's very important for you to all be present for the full 50 minutes. There were students last time who just showed up only at their time of the meeting and weren't there at the start of the team meeting. That's unprofessional. That shows you don't really respect the time of your peers who did show up at the correct time. So please make sure to be there for the full 50 minutes. Gives you an opportunity to also connect with your peers. Use time when others are meeting to connect with your team. Take notes. This is really important, and it's a great practice. There isn't an associated submission this time just because it was a little bit of a mess last time with all the amounts of submissions, and chasing down students who forgot to submit it is not a fun activity to do. So I'm just kind of not having you submit anything this time, but you should still be taking notes so you can remember and have them for reference. Otherwise, it's hard for you to know what we discussed, right? And you might just end the meeting saying, yeah, sure, but then not even remembering what was agreed upon, right? So please take notes. And I'll be keeping track of who all is meeting. Attendance and timesheets. If you attend your meeting on time, log 1 hour into your next timesheet, right? That's part of your coursework, your course time. If you're more than 10 minutes late or you miss the meeting without giving any notice, then use a late waiver in your next project submission. This is a makeup meeting guideline. I'm not going to cover that because I'm going to hope that that's not going to be needed for the majority of students. But I'll send out any additional information for that, especially once I open up slots for makeup meetings. But please don't default to expecting to do a makeup meeting from the beginning. Please follow this structure. And the meeting schedules are here, just like last time, separated by section RNA and RNB. You can find your team here. You can find what day it is. You can find the time slot, and you can find the team's meeting link, just like last time. So, it's important for you to look at this, put it in your calendars, make sure you don't forget. A lot of students also said, okay, I forgot that I had a meeting. It's not really an excuse, so make sure to do whatever you do to remember things. Hopefully that's putting it in the calendar, putting it in your planner, something. Not just on whim, hoping you remember, because you probably won't. Keeping up with announcements too. And then there's the 2 project submissions here. Stage 3 Part 1 asks you to submit the timesheet, right, tracking your hours. And remember to be adding up your total hours on that sheet as well. Some students are only adding up the hours on that individual sheet. No, you should be referencing back to your previous timesheet and cumulative, keeping track of how many total hours you're spending on this project. It gives you a sense of how much time you've put into it, as well as me. An updated project timeline for weeks 8 to 14. Here's a template link. So now you're going to create a new timeline for the rest of the semester based on where you're at in your project. So rather than having you create this whole timeline from weeks 1 to 14 at the start of the semester, I've broken it down into these 2 chunks. You did this for the first half. Now it's time to do it for the second half. So insert production tasks. Make sure to do so. And don't just submit the template as is without anything changed. I don't know why students would do that, but for whatever reason that tends to happen. So put your own production tasks here, right? Begin draft of animation for, whatever it is you're working on. So put your tasks in all of these different slots. I have some of the course due dates in here as well. And remember, stage 3 is the production stage. That's when you're creating all of your assets. Stage 4 is when you are finalizing things. So you'll see this is when your professional development activity is due. This is also when you're going to meet with your remote teams again. And you're going to be working on your Behance stuff at that point. So maybe you won't quite know exactly what final tweaks you're going to need yet. But just planning for that stage and knowing it's there and then adding in those tasks as they come about will be important. So you'll create a new timeline. And if you want to take this format and put it into your own software like Figma or something, you're welcome to. Some students have done that to good success. The plans look quite nice. I just use Google Docs because it's very accessible and it allows for this checkbox approach, which I think is handy. And then examples of your production work, just as you've done with your pre-production work as well. You'll submit that here for stage 1. And then stage 2 is even more straightforward. It's literally just the timesheet of your hours at that point, an updated project timeline, checking off the tasks throughout the production stage, and then your sort of final production work there. Okay? So I mean, that's it, right? And like I said, I think this should all make a lot more sense to you now than it maybe did, especially at the start of the semester. You've already been through this now with 2 previous stages. This is really, very open time, but that's why it's really, really important for you to stay on track. This is a point when a lot of students start to kind of fall off. And I think that's because all your other classes are also getting quite busy. And the production stage can also be quite overwhelming because you're working on sort of trying to make very high quality, comprehensive projects. So that's why it's more important than ever I'll be full screen. More important than ever to be scheduling your time, using time management skills, thinking about things that you would have learned from that LinkedIn learning module about remote work, and how to maintain a schedule and maintain balance in your life and stuff like that is really, really important. And I'm hoping you're finding this freedom to be, a good thing for your creative exploration, although I know that it can be difficult to sort of handle and pin down. But this video covered, yes, weeks 8 through 11 of the course. And so, like I said, very open-ended. That's why it's on you to really be managing things moving forward, ensuring that you are staying on top of your project, continually moving forward with it, and making your way toward a great final project at the end that you'll be very proud to showcase, and it will help you with your career and your skill development and all of those grand old things. So in the meantime, if you have any questions, especially from after watching this video, please send me a message and I will be happy to clarify. Otherwise, best of luck. And stay alert to announcements, right? That's when I send out the most important information every week and throughout the week. So really make sure you're looking at those when they are posted. That'll help you so much with staying on top of things in this course. So thanks again, and I will be meeting with you at this stage too. So it'll be great to see y'all again one-on-one. Come to those meetings with some questions, and we'll look at your work at that point, and just make sure you're on a good track to completing everything in time for the end of the semester. So. And by end of the semester, I mean week 13. All right, cool. I'll stop now. But thanks for watching. And yes, best of luck.